Hello, everyone. So now you're at Unit 2. So, Unit 2, we're going to talk about the biological basis of behavior. So, we're going to start looking at the brain, how the brain impacts us, how it makes us think different things, and then we're going to look at how it functions on the neuron level. So, as always, here's our basic overview of what we're going to do. So, we're going to look at structure and function first. We will have a few videos for that. Then we'll look at some tools that we use to examine the brain, look at the nervous system versus neurons, how neurons work, how neurotransmitters work. Then we'll start looking at evolutionary psych. So we're going to go ahead for this first video and just talk about the hemispheres of the brain. So we're separating this hemispheres, lobes, and then brainstem. So for this unit, with this first few lessons, you're going to have the lesson 1 mastery check, the lesson 2 mastery check, the lesson 3 mastery check, the brain study graphic organizer, where you're going to go through and see how we study the brain and make an organizer for it. Then you're going to have a brain cap and a supplemental labeling handout. So this handout will have different views of the brain. I will go through, label them just with the general view, and then it'll be your job to color it in, fill in what it does, all of that good stuff. And again, this will be added to your binder. So the brain is one of the most complex physical objects that we know of. All right, it is not fully studied. We don't really fully know how much of the brain we use, all of that. So when it comes to looking at the brain, you'll see a lot of things that seem kind of iffy and weird. For example, when we talk about brain surgery, you'll see that during brain surgery, you are actually awake because we don't necessarily know what every single little part of the brain does. A lot of brains are slightly different. So we don't want to just cut into someone's brain and, potentially hurt someone. So if you have not seen an actual brain, this is an example of what an actual brain looks like. So this brain right up here in the top left corner, that is going to be a brain that has sat out for about 2 weeks. So before they do any type of autopsy, they'll let the brain sit out for 2 weeks to kind of harden. If you can see the bloody brain off to the right side, that's what it looks like fresh out of someone's skull. So the reason why you want to let it wait 2 weeks is because the brain fresh out has kind of the consistency of a slightly thicker jello. So you could literally walk up and just grab it out. That being said, if you try cutting through it, it's not necessarily going to cut straight and you're going to damage a lot more parts. So if you're trying to do an autopsy and figure out why someone has passed away, you don't want to just kind of cut and hack at it. You want to get a clear cut. So those are some examples, and you guys will see some animal ones later, and you guys will see surgery also. So this is your heads up that we're going to start getting a little more gory, a little more graphic for this unit. All right, so the whole purpose of this video is start talking about the hemispheres. So your brain has two hemispheres. If you guys can see on this picture down here, there are two different sides and they are always working together. So if you go back to this first picture up here on the left, you can see this is one hemisphere. And our bloody picture up in the right corner, you can see both hemispheres and they're slightly connected, but they are two separate entities technically. So the brain has two hemispheres. They are cross-wired, meaning that the left side controls the right side. So when you move the right side of your body, the left side of your brain is telling the right side of your body to move, and vice versa. So the right side's telling the left side. These two hemispheres are connected by the corpus callosum. This is just a bundle of nerve fibers, and what it does is sends messages from one side of the brain to the other. So some people compare it to like a superhighway. They may say, hey, you can use these little side streets to get where you're going, but the superhighway is that corpus callosum. So whenever things are trying to communicate one side to the other, let's say I'm saying, hey, I want to move my right arm. Your left side of your brain is taking that input, transferring it, and moving that through the corpus callosum. All right, so this is an example of a corpus callosum. As you guys can see, this kind of ridge down the middle that has the fibers coming out of it, that is what we are talking about. So why do hemispheres matter? Why is it so separate? Well, they matter because there's lateralization. So what's that showing is that each hemisphere has its own distinct function. So your left hemisphere, which you guys can see it's kind of outlined in gray, that one specializes in language speech, handwriting, calculation, sense of time and rhythm, and basically any kind of thought that requires analysis. So, any kind of logical or analytical thought is coming from that left hemisphere. Our right side is nearly the opposite, so it helps with widespread processing. So, anything with perception, visualization, spatial perception, recognitions of patterns, faces, emotions, melodies, and expressions of emotion, that is all coming from that right hemisphere. So, if you look at your left is more so your logical side, your right is more so your artistic, your creative side. So, we've all heard this before, we've all seen those studies online, we've all seen those surveys. So, are you more left brain or right brained? Is that a thing? We're going to say no. So, you are not more left brain or right brain. Even if you are the most analytical, logical person, you are not very creative, you still have part of your brain, the right side, that is functioning fully, that is working together with that left side. So, just because you're not creative, just because you're more creative than you are, let's say good at math, that doesn't necessarily mean that one side of your brain is stronger. So, both sides are working towards your achievements. You are not just good at math, you are not just artsy, you're just brained. All right, so we are going to go ahead and end right there. We're going to pick up the next video with the lobes of the brain. So go ahead, complete your mastery check, and then check back in for lesson 2.